Hey, and welcome to the webinar today, which is on the Marketing Report 2019. Thanks for coming along. So we'll get into it in just a second. So my name is Matt Wilkinson. Also on the session is Anthea Major.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming.
And so we're going to obviously be talking about our marketing report, which is a survey of over 400 firms. If you'd like to get hold of the report, if you haven't got it already, Anthony's just going to paste that into the chat now, a link where you can download that report. And just like to say a big thanks to everyone who contributed to that report. So Gayatri, who works for us in the UK, she put together the amazing design and layout of the report. Anthony did a bunch of work in there as well, and also all the people, our partners, people like Jacqueline from Gusto, Nick from TOA, Mark from Telford Accountants and Start Accountants, and Trent McLaren from Practice Ignition. Big thanks to them for their insights that they added to the report. So just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to record this session and send out a recording. So don't worry if you miss anything. And we're both here. If you've got any technical questions, having any trouble connecting, just give us a shout. And any questions you've got, so we want to keep this nice and interactive, just use the Q&A panel and we will talk. We'll do the questions as we go. So we'll stick around at the end to do a Q&A as we would normally do, but we want to keep it nice and interactive. So any questions about marketing you've got, fire them in and we'll answer those as we go.
I can confirm it is recording. I can see that.
It's recording.
Yeah.
Yes. So we did this session a couple of weeks ago and it didn't record. So I'm blaming Zoom, but it probably was more likely that I didn't hit the record
User
button.
error, maybe, for a few of us. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get into it. We've got a lot to cover. So the format of today's session is going to be like this. We're going to show you some stats. Obviously, numbers are interesting, but they're not interesting in themselves if we don't give some insights, give you some tips, and then answer your questions. So that's really going to be the rough format of what we do. We'll show you something from the report, and then myself and Anthony will add our insights to that, give you some marketing tips, and then please chip in with any questions that you have. So a little bit about myself. My name's Matt Wilkinson, and I'm the founder and CEO of BizInc. And we work with several hundred accounting and bookkeeping firms all across the world, and we help them with their websites and we help them with their marketing. And the insights that I'm going to be sharing is what I've learned from working with those firms, what I've seen that's worked well, and what I've seen that hasn't worked so well. So that's what we're basing our insights on. It's real world experience with hundreds of accounting firms.
And I'm Anthea Major. I work in the marketing team here at BizInc. So my main role recently has been working in client marketing and helping our clients with the day-to-day marketing. So I have seen these challenges that we're going to talk through today actually up close as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing what I've kind of learnt from being there with those accountants, and also what we can bring, what we're getting out of this report as well.
Thanks, Anthea. So just before we get into the actual stats in the report, just a little bit of an overview of who we talked to. So we surveyed 400 firms. 57% of those were accountants, 43% bookkeepers. And thanks to everyone who filled this in. If you're listening today, I really appreciate you taking the time to fill in that survey. It really helps us help you, give us some real data about what you're doing with marketing. And I think that really helps the profession as a whole. So thank you for putting the time into doing that. Firms we talked to are mainly smaller firms. So 74% single partner firms, 23% 1 to 5 partners. And in terms of staff size, 44% of the firms that we talked to had 2 to 5 staff. In terms of where those firms were, basically English-speaking countries, so 39% Australia, 20% Canada, 17% US, 13% NZ, 8% UK, and a bunch of other places as well, making up the rest of it. And in terms of how long those firms have been in business, 28% have been operating for 11 to 20 years. So, almost a third have been in business for quite a long time, really. And 23%, 6 to 10 years. So pretty well established firms. So this is the first part. So if you've got the report open in front of you, it could be handy. We're going to be talking about pages 8 and 9 here. We talked about planning. So, everything good starts with a plan and all of that. But unfortunately, what we found, and this has been borne out in various studies that we've done over the years, almost 2/3 of firms, 65.5% of firms, do not have a marketing plan. Now, I'm kind of interested on this. Now, this is going to be an anonymous poll, so you just for my interest. I think if firms don't have a marketing plan, do they not have a business plan as well? Because I kind of think a marketing plan is an integral part of that. So you wouldn't mind filling in this poll, because it's totally anonymous. I'd be interested to know if you've got a business plan as well. We ran this on the last one, and it roughly correlated to the amount of firms that had a marketing plan. So if you don't mind filling that in, that'd be great. And I'll reveal those results in just a minute. Now, what was interesting is the firms who did have a plan, they seem to be really active, because the ones who did have a plan, 40% of those had updated it in the last 6 months. So like the third of firms who do have a plan, they seem to really work on that. Now, I don't think I need to say how important it is to have a plan, right? And you would be saying that to your clients, you need a business plan, you need a marketing plan. So I don't think I need to sort of stress how important that is, but some tips for creating a plan, to get a marketing plan together. So first one, take a look at some of the insights that are in the report. So we've got people like Trent McLaren from Practice Ignition, Mark Telford, who's an award-winning Xero accountant from the UK, and they share their marketing tips in there. And another one from Jacqueline Onko at Gusto, a US payroll company, who also used to work for Xero. She really talks about nailing down who is your ideal prospect. And that's something that we always come back to in planning, is if you know who you're selling to, who you really want to sell to, a lot of the rest of the stuff falls into place. So, I mean, Anthea, you've written, I don't know, probably in the last year or two, 200 plus marketing plans for firms?
Yeah, probably something like that. And like you say, I've seen this kind of stuff at the front line as well. And I loved what Jacqueline wrote. You can read it kind of page 9 of the report as well. So she speaks in there about being focused. And I really just like that point, because if you do have a focus to your marketing, it's going to be so much easier, and you're going to have better results, because you'll be able to have a stronger appeal to those people that you are talking to. I was just thinking about this webinar about something that you often say, Matt, to quote you, getting new leads, like marketing that way is hard, right? Like it's hard for BizInc, it's hard for Xero, it's hard work. So, you've decided to do some marketing and you want to get some new leads, but where are they going to come from, So it's so much easier. And as you mentioned, Matt, things just fall into place from that if you do have a focus to it. And I did also just want to point out on this planning section, if you're doing a marketing plan, remember your existing clients as well. So don't forget them. If we're talking about easier marketing, I'm all about making marketing easier. That's the one. Think about your existing clients and remember them in the plan.
Cool. Thanks for that. Well, I'll close off this poll. And well done, everyone. 100% of people say they've got.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very good. It wasn't the same in the last one we did.
It wasn't.
So that's cool. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing that poll. And a few things to just say that end up with planning. So Anthony's going to paste a few links into the chat now, which are webinars that we've done on marketing planning. So how to do a 90-day growth plan, and one about Xero marketing campaigns, which even if you're not a Xero firm, I think you would find that stuff useful anyway. So we're going to post those webinars into the chat, and we'll keep doing that as we go through the session today. So the next part that we want to have a look at, this is pages 11 to 13 in the report, is marketing resources. So we're talking here about budget, about staff, that kind of thing. And we found that 89% of firms we talked to didn't have any full-time marketing staff. 71% didn't have part-time marketing staff. And 46% had no budget, no marketing budget whatsoever. So, obviously, if you don't have a marketing budget, you're going to have to do it yourself. And I'm kind of interested here to run another little quick poll, which is if I want you to have a think of this scenario. So if I gave you $1 million to spend on marketing tomorrow, would you know what to do with it? So I'm going to just run that poll now because, I've been asked that question or a similar question in the past, and it's quite a confronting question. Is that you think, well, would I waste it? Would I know what to do? I'm quite interested to know results on that. So there's a little poll going there. While we're doing that, you've got a few tips on how to do marketing on a shoestring budget. Hey, Anthea.
Yeah, if you don't have a budget or that's a constraint, there is still marketing you can do. Don't let that limit you from getting started. So my 3 tips would be, number 1, sell to your existing clients. As I just mentioned before, you have a relationship with them. That's going to be easier marketing, if you like. They already know you. As we mentioned, getting new leads and creating a new relationship is hard and takes time. So remember your existing clients and think about what you can either upsell to them or what you can get from them. Second one I'd say is have a look at outbound email. So outbound marketing is, reaching out to a prospect, you going to them rather than waiting for them to come to you. So I'd suggest here, find contact details for your prospects, search online. There might be different directories and things like that. Again, that's much easier if you do have a niche or a focus to that. And then send them an email. So if you do have your focus, you'll know what their pain points are and how you can help them. So put those sort of things in that email. The third one I'd say is, in regards to our free marketing tip, would be create a social community. So we did this ourselves by creating a Facebook group for busy accountants and bookkeepers, which you're welcome to join as well. You might do the same thing, whether it's a local area or, again, a niche or a focus like that. So I hope you've written those down. You'll find some more details in the marketing report as well, but feel free to get started in that way.
Cool. Thank you, Anthea. And we got our results in. So if I gave you $1 million, so we got 80% of firms say they wouldn't know what to do with it, and 20% would. I'm not going to give you $1 million, by the way. So, but no, that's interesting to know. And I think it's hard, right? There's so much information out there, and that's what we want to do with the report and the tips and things like that, is just to show give some clarity around marketing. Okay, well, a few other things that we found around resources, that 35% of firms weren't using marketing software. And we did a bit of filtering on that data, and actually those firms also were the worst performers in terms of leads generated. 25% of the firms who didn't use marketing software didn't generate any leads. So I think an important thing there is that, the modern marketer relies on apps, right? Apps are just tools. People ran businesses before software and all of that, but really in the modern environment, you need apps to do things. So it's kind of interesting that 35% of firms say they're doing marketing without any apps at all. So that's kind of interesting. And I think the way I'd put it would be, it's not going to make you a good marketer to have apps, but I think not having them will make you a bad marketer. So in terms of my tip there, what software would I be using? If I had to pick one thing, I'd start with email marketing software. It's got the highest ROI of any online tool, and I think it performs really well for accountants, but we'll talk a little bit more about email marketing later. All right, cool. So let's move on to the next section, where we're going to talk about leads. So I don't really want to dwell on this because I don't think these are like really good results, and I think that we could go into this and it could get a bit negative. But 19% of firms aren't getting any leads, so you've got to worry there. Are they going out of business? Are they just going to keep that client base that they've got and sort of hope that they don't leave or die out? If you've got an aging kind of client base, that's a risk that we get with quite a few of our clients talking about that. They've got an aging client base and they just sell their businesses, retire, or unfortunately die. So if you're not getting leads, where are you filling in that refilling your kind of bucket full of clients. Next stat, look, this won't surprise you. 81% of firms, their main source of leads was referrals. So that's not going to surprise anybody. But what might be surprising is that 39% of firms do nothing to get more referrals. So, that to me is kind of strange, because, if that works well, you should be thinking about how you encourage more referrals. Now, I think there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy here. I've heard this. I've been working with accountants for like a decade now. And sometimes you get firms come to us and it's like a source of pride almost to say, I get all my leads from referrals. We don't need to do marketing. And what I would say there is, like, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if you don't do marketing, then, well, you're not going to get leads from anywhere else but referrals. But imagine if you could get that plus leads from marketing. How successful could your firm be then? Sorry, you go, Auntie.
I was just going to say, I was just thinking about this, kind of like our flywheel that we talk about, everything kind of links into something else, right? Like marketing to existing clients and then getting referrals from them, getting new clients, marketing to them, everything just flows around. So it's important to think about both parts of it as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's also a thing that's like, there's a lot of things sometimes in business that, it's all right until it's not. And then it's really not all right. You're getting referrals, and then the tap turns off. And, I've seen that time and again with firms for whatever reason, because, we're not operating in a vacuum. There's competitors, there's all kinds of things going on in the business landscape. So what happens if that referral tap turns off? What are you going to do then? And so whatever marketing you do, that's the systematic approach to growth. Is having leads coming in that way. And so what we'll look at next is after referrals, the biggest source of leads for firms was their website. So let's have a bit of a look there. So an encouraging statistic here was that only 9% of firms don't have a website now. I mean, that's still pretty bad, right? It's about 0%, but 9% of firms don't have a website now. In 2014, 5 years ago, that was 13.4%. So it's good to see that one going down, because every firm should have a website, right? Now, in terms of the performance of the website, 65% of firms that we talked to were getting under 100 visitors per month. So I would always say that quality of visitors is more important than quantity, but within a certain kind of boundaries. And I think that you do need some quantity coming through your site, or just sheer numbers. It's going to be hard to generate enough leads. So in terms of website age, we found that 12% of firms, only 12% had a website that was 5 years old. So if we go back 5 years to 2014, 29% of firms had a website that was 5 years old. So that's a real improvement. And I think that's anecdotally, I would say firms shows that they value their website and they see that as an important part of their marketing mix, where perhaps less so in the past. So 69% of the firms that we talked to said that they got leads from their website. And Auntie is going to share a few tips on getting leads from your website, just some general website tips.
Yeah, I did just want to explain really that last point on screen where it says it shouldn't be about you. I was thinking here, writing the report about, what would be our tips for what to put on your website and that sort of thing. And we could give you, 50 different tips, and we have done webinars solely on that sort of thing, but I was trying just to think about one, and my number one tip would be to make it about them, make it about your clients, make it about your prospects, and try not to make it about yourself. And that's the best marketing that I've seen, is when firms focus on their customers. So you can read more of my tips on page 21. It has been said that it might be the best page of the report. You can read more of that in detail there. I'll tell you a bit more about how you might actually do that. So if you have a focus, again, I always kind of go back to that, your imagery will reflect that, your content, you might have case studies and testimonials, you might do a video like Wise Advice, the screenshot on the slide here, they have video testimonials of their clients that forms the homepage. So once you start kind of changing that spotlight to focus on them, things fall into place again. So that would be my number one tip, is try and focus it on your clients.
Best page of the report. So
yeah,
yeah.
For sure.
Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, no, that is a really good part of the report, and yeah, it's so important, not just in your marketing, but in your website. Sorry. But across all of your marketing is, I say, like, your about page on your website, it's not about you. It's about them. It's about who you serve. Nobody really cares about you. It's what's in it for me. And that's just the way of the world. And the sooner you kind of start talking to that, the better your marketing is gonna be. So email marketing, one of my favorite topics. I've been doing online businesses for 20 years now, depressingly, and email has been the common thread through all of those. That's the thing that's always made me money. Not to say that lots of other things haven't, search engines in some businesses, or social media for sure, those things all play a big part, but email is just the reliable generator of business. So we found out that only 50% of firms are using email marketing, and that's, to me, is kind of really, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I know some of the reasons why, because I talk to firms, and there's a perception it might be old-fashioned, things like that, but it works, right? I can tell you that it works. I'd be interested to know, like, if you're not using email marketing, like, why not? You can just paste something into the chat. Just tell me why you're not. I'd love to hear those reasons, but yeah, so only 50% of firms using email marketing, and of those, 83% are using it for an email newsletter. So not surprising. That's the tried and tested firm marketing tactic is the newsletter, and and it's good. It works. Now, I'd be doing some other types of email marketing, and I'll tell you why I think email is so effective. A few reasons. Number one, 100% of business owners have an email address, or 100% of business owners you would probably want to work with have an email address, right? And most check it several times a day. So, that's number one. People check it. Compare that to, say, LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. The percentage of your clients or prospects who are on those platforms will be much less than 100%. And will they check it several times a day? They might not even check it several times a year. And they might do as well. I'm not trying to say social's bad. I'm just saying that's the power of email. Return on investment of email is really high, and it's actually going up. So there's a Direct Marketing Association study every year, and they've found that ROI of email, $44 for every dollar spent. $44 for every dollar spent, and that's up from $38 for every dollar spent a few years back. And a study by McKinsey, so one of the biggest research organizations in the world, they found that email beats social media by 40 times for customer acquisition. So social, I think we'll talk about that in a bit, and I think of it as a customer engagement tactic, but for customer acquisition, email performs really well. Final thing I'd say is that people open emails from accountants, and this is where we can give you, absolute raw data from the emails that we send for accounting firms all over the world. So we send tens of thousands of emails every month, things like newsletters and email blasts for accounting and bookkeeping firms across the world. And the open rate of those emails is about 40% on average, taken over a few years. Now, I don't know whether that sounds high or low to you. It's pretty high, because the highest performing category for MailChimp, so MailChimp, if you've not heard of it, is one of probably the most popular email marketing app in the world. Their top performing category, which was hobbies, the top performing category was just over 27% open rate. So what does that say? People open emails from their accountant. Even if they're scared that they've done something wrong, it still means they've opened the email. So it's a real good tactic. people don't ignore it like other things. I mean, you know, you're never going to get 100% open rate, but 40% is good, whether it sounds it or not.
Yeah.
So final stat, and I'll let Anthea come back in, but 57% of the firms who sent email got leads, and that kind of rose with the size of firm, probably because they've got more budget and staff. But yeah, one of the questions we get around email is, okay, I send a newsletter, but how do I do the customer acquisition bit? How do I generate business through email? And our response would always be, well, you need a list of prospects. So you've got your list of customers. That's easy to get hold of. You need to start building a list of prospects, people who you want to work with. And that's, you know, that's a long-term process. And Anthea, you've got a few tips on how to build that, right?
Yeah, I can understand, like I've, again, spoken to a lot of accountants and probably in a similar boat, either no list of prospects at all or, you know, a very light on small list. So if you don't have one, I'm just pasting a link in the chat now to a webinar we did called 9 Practical Ways to Grow Your Leads Database. So really suggest having a look at that because we go more into detail there about how you might start and grow that list. We talk about things like a lead magnet, so that's something on your website that's going to hopefully attract those leads to give you their email address, and then you can slowly build that list and market to them. So have a look at that. There's also, just looking at page 25 of the report as well, Gayatri's got some great tips there on email marketing. So you can read more about it there, but it's just some good tips about how to actually get your emails opened. And she mentions having a think about the emails that you receive in your inbox and the emails that you open, and take a step back and think, why was that? You know, why did I open that email? What was it that hooked you in? And see if that might, you know, give you any ideas. Also think about your subject lines, you know, make sure they're punchy and descriptive. And also don't be afraid to test and repeat the emails as well. Just because the emails worked well in the past and you've sent that doesn't mean it's, you know, done for. Feel free to repeat it. Repetition's good in marketing, or, you know, test and tweak and try again as well.
I'll double down on that, the repetition part. You know, we've got emails that we've been sending for over 5 years, same email, send it every few months. Look at all the big brands, you know, they don't just do a new advert every month, they run the same ads and they'll run them until they stop working. So repetition is really underused. I think people think, oh, I've done that, people will get bored, but most people aren't taking, you know, even if you get 40% open rate, that's 60% of people who didn't even open it. So you can send it again and some of them are going to open it. So yeah, repetition is really important.
Yeah, and you can, you know, potentially send to those who didn't open the first time. You know, there's probably a little bit of thinking that you have to be creative with this sort of stuff, but it's not, you know, it's not necessarily the way. Feel free to, use again what's worked. Especially, I know I'm kind of getting off track here, but this time of year is a good time to think about business planning and that. There's no reason why you can't do that, you know, campaign every December, just as an idea.
Yeah, very
just
cool.
Got a fly buzzing around here.
I apologize for my tea drinking. I'm originally from the UK, so you got to have about 9 cups of tea every day. So
got to keep up the quota.
That fuels me. Cool. All right. So social media. So we've sort of danced around this subject a little bit, and you know, one of the things that I've heard over the years that we used to hear, oh, I'm an accountant, I don't really need a website. So that's kind of gone, as we showed. Like most firms have got a fairly new website, which is great. The one that we still hear now is like, oh, social media, I'm not on social media, it's for young people, right? And I hope nobody here still thinks that, because if you wouldn't mind pasting these links in, Anthea, you know, just check these out, right? So Facebook, 2.41 billion daily users, and 72% of those, 72% of people aged 50 to 60 who are online in the US use Facebook. 72% of people aged 50 to 60 who are online use Facebook. So it's not just for young people, right? In fact, young people don't use Facebook. they're on the, they're not on Facebook. That is for, that's definitely not the platform of choice. LinkedIn, so, you know, the business platform, clearly not as many users, but still 303 million users. 90 million of those are senior level influencers, as LinkedIn described them, and 63 million in decision making positions. So a lot of people who would probably make good clients.
I just
And
wanted. Oh,
yes,
sorry.
sorry, you go. No,
I was
you
just going
go.
to say that first dot point on screen, 28% of accountants aren't using any social media. It might seem all right by the stat, but it's a bit crazy to me given that most of your clients and prospects, as Matt's just shown you the stats, are using some form of social media. So there's also another thing, like I mentioned before about the free marketing tips. There's no entry cost to, setting up a Facebook business page and that sort of thing. So I'd highly recommend that. And 60% of leads, the last stat at the bottom there, do get leads from social media. I know, Matt, you're going to come back to that in a second, but yeah, I would
But like
highly
the Facebook page, right? Just to stop on that, just like firms who don't even have that, do a Google search for a local business, not an accounting firm, whatever, a restaurant, whatever, a hairdresser, something like that. Normally, you'll get the Facebook link to their page can come above their actual website.
Yeah.
So it's a destination, right? Like just like you have your Google business listing. The same on Facebook. It's just like Gayatri, who does our social media, calls it social media hygiene. There are just certain things you need to do, even if you don't want to do anything beyond, put up your LinkedIn company page, personal profile, Facebook page. You should do those things, because if you don't, it can look a bit strange when people are, looking for you online, or they might not find you online.
Yeah, it's nowadays it's kind of like not having a website, right? Like, just not having that presence there. And the amount of firms that are using social media platforms has risen since we, did the last survey. So that's good to see. But I'd also just go back to the point, you don't have to suddenly go out and get every single social media platform and Snapchat and all the rest. Have a think again about who you're targeting, and that will help direct you as well. So yeah, those would be my main tips. This is where your market is. Go there and talk to them there.
Cool. Very good. SEO. So I'll do this one, but yeah, you can stop me, Anthea, if I start ranting about this.
Highly likely, yeah.
It's probably like most misunderstood marketing tactic of all time. Just this morning, actually, I was talking to a firm in the US, and they're like, we know that SEO is super important. And then I asked them what about it was important, and they couldn't tell me anything. We just heard it's important. So SEO is kind of important. Like, it's nice to sort of rank, but what does it mean? Like getting traffic from Google, what does that mean? And so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding there. And it is a confusing topic. It's a super confusing topic, search engines and search engine ranking. And we found that, with 39% of firms didn't even know if they were getting traffic from search engines at all. So if you're in that boat, you can sign up for Google Analytics. That's a free analytics software. It reports on who visits your website, clicks on pages, and all that kind of thing. Completely free. Plug it into your website, and you're good to go. So in terms of search engine marketing, which tends to split down two things, which is like paid search. So that's like Google AdWords is the dominant platform there. That's why Google's one of the biggest companies in the world is AdWords. 14% are using paid search, so not that many firms using it. And so 62% aren't doing SEO either. So SEO tends to be doing tweaks on your site and getting sites to link to you, that kind of thing. So you're improving your Google search ranking. So it's a big topic, right? And I kind of find it weird when I see accounting firms doing SEO, because SEO is like a niche of marketing. So, if you don't really want to, a lot of firms don't want to do marketing, and then they're focusing on something that's like a niche of marketing. It's a really specialized subject. And I think there's a lot of myths around SEO as well. So last year, I think it was last year or maybe earlier this year, did a webinar on 12 SEO myths, and it was really popular. I hear this stuff all the time, these different myths that are put out there about things like duplicate content and Google loves blogs and stuff like this, you know, and they're just kind of half truths or even worse than that. So I did a webinar on that where we clear up some of that stuff, and Anthony's just posted the link to that. And, you know, it's not just about busting the myths. We offer some kind of practical tips on how to improve your search engine ranking there as well. The pages 33 and 34 of the report, we had a look at offline marketing. I mean, it's easy to think the whole world is online now, but you know, offline marketing is still a really important thing to do. And we found that 58% of firms go to local networking events. No surprises there. But I mean, it kind of only surprises it's as low as that, right? You know, because if I was a local business, I'd be certainly going to events locally, and that's good. You know, events are good because people will always buy from people. You know, we've just talked about SEO. You know, social media might not exist in 20 years, you know, who knows. One thing that will exist is that people buy from people, and things like events will work. They'll work in 2019 and they'll work in 2059 or whatever. So, and it's really important to focus on that, meeting people. That's always going to work. You guys in the relationships business, and, you know, trust and relationships, they're best built face to face. 51% of firms attend conferences. Now, actually, we should have probably qualified that down to say, is that conferences where they'd be doing marketing, or are they conferences like Xerocon or, you know, QuickBooks Connect, that kind of thing? I don't know. We didn't qualify that down, but be interested to know, for those who do go to events and conferences who are listening today, what kind of events do you go to? So, you know, is it things like those conferences, or do you go to BNI events, Chamber of Commerce events? If you want to type in the chat, I'd be quite interested to know that. But 24% of the firms that we talked to did nothing in terms of offline marketing. So, you know, they either maybe did no marketing at all, or all their marketing was online. Now, you know, BizInc is very much an online company, but we certainly don't hide behind our desks, and I'd advise any firm not to do that as well. You know, you've got to try and get out there, meet clients, meet prospects as much as possible. Online marketing it's hard to build a firm just from online marketing.
Yeah, it's interesting, just kind of related to that one. In our Facebook group, I recently asked the question, you know, if you had to get 10 clients by the end of the year, what would you do? And that's often something we kind of ask ourselves here as well, to get everyone thinking about what suddenly would you do if you had to. And offline marketing, things like networking events, is one of those things that's easy to kind of day-to-day push and drop. And I can understand it, but suddenly if you have that pressure on, networking and these sort of things is one of the ones that does come up. I would actually do that. I would pound the pavement. I would get out there. I would go talk to people. It might be, you know, hard and that sort of thing, but if you had to do it, you would do it. So I'd encourage you to do it anyway. Trent has some good tips on kind of running events and offline marketing. Excuse me, you can find them on page 34 of the report. I really liked reading through his tips here as well. So Practice Ignition, they do a lot of events. They're kind of known for their like Xerocon parties and different events like that they regularly run. And they said that his comments are that they do that because it allows them to get face to face with their clients and with potential clients and form a relationship. They're way more likely to remember you and connect with you that way. He also suggests planning well in advance. So he even mentions they do about 12 weeks of planning, and they have different types of promotion as well. So that's another part is, you know, as we mentioned, clients may not be on Facebook. Some, you know, most will have an email. So think about different ways you might promote that. It might be a video, it might be a blog, an email blast, and actually I'd suggest all of the above to try and reach them. And now he also mentions his last point is to remember to follow up. So don't just do a great event and, you know, 12 weeks of planning and then let it drop. So that's something you really need to think about as well, and plan that follow up too. So follow-up emails, follow-up calls, calls to action at the event to try to get them to do stuff as well. We could go into this, in more detail as well, but I really encourage you to have a look at that page of the report and see what you can do with your own events.
Cool. Thanks, Anthea. So we're moving towards the end. So if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A panel or to chat. It doesn't matter, either one. We're quite happy to take them. And we will stick around at the end for a bit of a Q&A. So any questions you've got about the report or anything to do with marketing, happy to answer those. The final part that I just wanted to have a look at was marketing challenges. So we always ask about what are the biggest challenges to doing marketing, and the one that always comes back as the top challenge is having the time to do marketing. So I always think that's an interesting one, to think about would be, is it that you actually haven't got time, or is it a case of not making time, right? Because every successful business person has got the same 24 hours a day, and it's how they use them. So I know there's a lot of pressure from clients and all of that. We feel that the same here. But, is it a question of like not having time, or is it a case of trying to make time for marketing? Because if you want to grow, like, you've got to do some marketing. And some firms excel at marketing, right? We all probably know what 1, 2, 3 firms who really excel at marketing. So it is possible to do that, whether it's a case of, making the time or outsourcing that, it can be done. Now, sorry, you're going to go, Anthea?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's that point on screen that 17% said that they struggle with knowing what to focus on. And, I can definitely understand that. It's hard. Marketing can be confusing as well, especially when it's not your forte. Accounting's confusing to me. So I would go back to like our first slide, which was about our first section, about a plan. Get back to having a good plan, and it doesn't have to be the world's best. You don't have to spend ages and ages working on that. Just focus on your ideal prospect, and things will fall into place. So that will help you with what to say. You might speak in their language, like how to say it as well, and also where to go to say that, different platforms, as we've mentioned. So with, say you were focusing on a tradie, you might choose Facebook as opposed to other channels. If you were focusing on a lawyer or an architect, LinkedIn would probably be the way to go. So I'd be thinking about, again, who am I focusing on? And then things will fall into place from there.
Cool. So we're pretty much at the end, and just to sum things up, I think you guys as accountants and bookkeepers get a hard time from marketers. There's, I think, a bit of a negativity around, which we're saying you've got to do this, and you're not doing that right. And that's not what we're about at BizInc. We're just about saying, look, there's some statistics. It's a pretty big survey size, 400 firms. Some things good, some things bad. Here's what to do about them. They're just giving you that real data and tips of what we've seen working with like several hundred firms across the globe. Now, so you'll get my final thoughts on all of that on page 35 of the report. But, there's one thing that I'd sort of focus on is like, it's easy to get distracted by all the shiny new things in marketing. We're the same. We've got that stuff coming out as well. But having that focus on who's your ideal customer and understanding the value you can bring to them. If you can do those two things, understand who your ideal prospect is, go to them and talk about the value and it's got to be their value, not your value, their value. You're not going to go far wrong. That's what we've built our business on, is just tightly focusing on our niche of accountants and bookkeepers and building everything we do around that. And it just answers a lot of our marketing questions. We know where to market. We know, the tone we're going to market in. We know who to partner with. So it really answers your questions, and it just creates a much stronger proposition than trying to market it to everybody. So happy to stick around for some questions. If you want help with your marketing, we can do that, of course. And so there's a little poll will be on screen. Just tell us and we'll get in touch over the next couple of days about that. Or I think, Anthony, maybe if you can post the demo link in the chat, you can book a meeting with us. So we're happy to stick around for questions. Just type those into the Q&A panel.
Yeah, I've just seen one. I've just launched that poll as well. So if anybody would like us to contact you, just use that poll and we'll be in touch. I did just see one come in just now though, which is if you could, what are the best marketing apps?
Okay, good question. Well, we saw that like about 35% of firms weren't using apps. And so I think that is generally a bad thing. But I mean, apps are just tools, right? You know, people built billion-dollar companies before software existed. So you don't, you know, they're not essential, but I think they're very, very important in your marketing mix. And the tech stack that we would recommend would be, you need a CRM. I think that's at the bottom of it. So that kind of overlaps into sales as well. But a CRM, something like HubSpot, Zoho, ActiveCampaign, or maybe you can do something in your practice management software there, but some way that you can track leads and prospects and how they move through a pipeline. That's important. Also, email. So I'd say you need an email app. So we have a BizInc. We offer an email app, or a MailChimp, an ActiveCampaign, a Campaign Monitor, one of those apps as well. Probably something like Zoom or GoToMeeting. I think that's kind of important these days, is to have that online meeting software. It's, you know, maybe you can meet all your clients on individually, but to be able to do online meetings, I think is important. I mean, you could have some social media management software, but I don't think it's essential. You know, you can do that through the app itself. One I'd actually throw in there, which is kind of a bit left field, would be a tool called Canva. So CANVA, I presume it's .com, and just Google it, you'll find it. And that basically, it makes people who are not very design minded be able to do really cool looking stuff. So
Like
we use
me.
that all the time. Hey, yeah, we use that all the time, right? Social media posts, posters, flyers, whatever you want, they've got a template for it. And you know, you can start believing that you're a really creative person by using it, but it's super easy to use, right?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend that. I've pasted the link to it as well. But also just on that, we actually did a webinar called Marketing Tech Stack for Accounting Firms. So I'm just going to paste the link to that. So if you do want to find out a bit more about what we recommend and what we've seen work in terms of the suite of apps, because I know there's a million out there, so it is good to kind of have that guidance on what do I actually need and what is kind of other, you know, nice to have. So have a look at that webinar. I've also just got one more, Matt, about which social media channel works best.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks for the question. And we get asked this a lot, you know, so, or sometimes like, oh, should we be on all the social media channels? And, you know, the answer to like a lot of questions in annoying ways, it depends. And what it depends on is, go back to your ideal prospect. You know, if you understand who you're trying to sell to, then you're going to know where they are. So we talk about your prospect map. You try and map out where your prospects hang out, whether that's on, so it could be on Facebook, it could be on LinkedIn. You know, we've got a firm we're working with at the moment. They do a lot of work with lawyers, attorneys. So they're not really on Facebook. They're targeting them on LinkedIn. And that's working really well for them. You know, if you are working with, let's say, hair salons, Instagram, you know, they're going to be on there posting pictures and things like that. So it's trying to find the right channel for the people that you're trying to reach. But, you know, generally, I think having some presence on Facebook, like we talked about earlier, is important. In LinkedIn, I think, you know, every accountant and bookkeeper should be on LinkedIn. It's the professional social media network. And then, you know, after that, it possibly Instagram, possibly Twitter, just depending on the industry or whatever that you're going after.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions I can see for now. So thank you.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks everybody for coming along today. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've not got a copy of the report, you know, you can see the link there. We'll send that out and we'll send the recording out after the webinar. But that just leaves me to say thank you, Anthea, for coming along today, and thanks for everyone for making time to come to the session today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. See you all later.
Bye-bye.